Hi, welcome back to Chapter 29, Parker Elias. It's worth all the hard work to see Mr. Kermit's face when he recognized his car, brand new and so much better. Although, how could it be any worse than it was when he left it, being shoveled up off the entrance to the parking lot? I tap on the gas and listen as the roar echoes off the front of the school building. Some cars purr like a kitten. This one screams like a howler monkey, all thanks to 585 horses under the hood. If it had a hood. Howler monkey. I saw that in a book a couple of days ago. At first, it looked like holy workmen, but I figured it out and in record time. That's been happening faster and faster lately, thanks to the extra reading help Mr. Kermit had gotten for me. And not just me, Ribbit helped every kid in our class. There's no way we could ever thank him enough for what he's done, but that doesn't mean we can't try. That's why we rebuilt his car for him, and it's why I have to use this science fair project to totally blow the judges' minds and save his job. Grams regards the little eggplant in her lap quizzically. I can't imagine why I bought this pocketbook, she complains. It doesn't match anything I wear. Please don't squeeze it, I request. It's the blue plate special at a local table tonight. If I'm driving, there had better be farm business involved. At that moment, Kiana raises her arm and drops it. The high sign, I stomp on the gas. Even I'm shocked by the burst of acceleration as those 585 horses hurl us forward at breakneck speed. In a heartbeat, the others are far behind me in the rear view mirror. The feeling of raw power is so awesome that when we run out of the driveway, I almost forget that I'm the one who's steering the car. At last instant, I yank on the wheel. We thump onto River Street and fly down the block, tires barely touching the pavement. According to Jake, this engine should go from get us from 0 to 60 in 4.6 seconds. By now, we've got to be just about there. As we pick up speed, Rami's banner unfurls from the car's old-fashioned radio antenna. I could see it in the mirror, fluttering in the slipstream behind us. The expertly painted words of the message we need to deliver beyond any other. Fire Ribbit? Question mark. No way. My classmates are jumping up and down and jeering, so it must be open and readable. The adults aren't moving at all, which might be from shock. We didn't tell Jake or Miss Fountain about the banner part, and of course Mr. Kermit himself didn't suspect any of this until a few weeks ago. He might not even know. He might not have even known he's Ribbit. Then everybody's gone as I screech around the corner to circle the block. That's the plan, a quick loop of the school, banner flying, and back up the driveway to stop at the judge's feet so they can examine this monster engine, every inch of it built by us. By this time, Graham is enjoying the ride. Where are we going, kiddo? The senior center, like always, I reply, with a short detour to impress the judges. Judges? She echoes in a strange tone. Don't you mean firemen? No, Grams. They're judges, I explain patiently. This is a science fair project. She frowns. Then who's going to put out the fire? That's when I spot tongues of bright orange flame in the rear view mirror. I panic. The car's on fire. Grams is totally calm. No, it isn't, kiddo. It's that rag we're towing. The banner. I risk a glance over my shoulder. She's right. The heat of the tailpipe set fire to the bedsheet fabric we used to make the banner. Come to think of it, Jake mentioned that he filled the gas tank with racing fuel to get maximum performance for the judges. He said it burns really hot. Yeah, no kidding. What should I do? If I stop, then we won't win the science fair and Mr. Kermit will be gone. But how can I drive a car that's on fire? Well, technically, the car isn't burning, just the sheet attached to the radio antenna. Already, fire ribbit? No way. Is down to fire ribbit. No W. It looks like we want him to get fired right now. That's the opposite of the message we're trying to send. I wheel around another corner since I can't stop. I speed up, flooring the gas pedal again. Maybe the wind will put out the fire. Instead, it fans the flames. The banner whips from side to side, leaving glowing embers dancing in the air. The next time I look back, a honeysuckle hedge is ablaze. This is definitely not covered under my provisional license. Nice moves, kiddo, Graham cheers. I've never knew you were such a good driver. All the months I've been driving Graham's, and she doesn't notice my skills until I'm laying waste to the neighborhood. As I streak back toward River Street, I leave a line of smothering bushes in my wake. Black smoke hangs in the air. Now the banner is down to fire rib, which sounds like an ad for a restaurant. All along the sidewalk, people are shouting and pointing and scrambling to get out of the way of the swirling sparks. Breathing a silent prayer, I make the final turn until River Street and streak up the school's driveway. Even though this is a disaster, there's only one place to go. Back to the judges. Remember, our project isn't banner making 101, the internal combustion engine. And that part works amazing. Suddenly, some guy in a suit steps from the parking lot right into the road in front of me. I slam on the brakes, sending the car into a skid. At the last second, the suit guy hurls himself out of the way, somersaulting through a flower bed. The car fishtails around and lurches to a halt right before the three judges. Mr. Carstairs runs up with a fire extinguisher and puts out the burning banner with a sea of foam. And all that's left is a single word hanging limp from the antenna. Fire. Like we didn't already know that. Half the science fair is out on the lawn, gawking at me in horrified silence. I say the thing I've been rehearsing all day. Ta-da! It doesn't go over as well as I expected. Jake rushes to help Grams out of the car. The eggplant drops to the pavement and splits open. Miss Fountain comes for me. From the direction of the flower bed, the guy I almost hit marches up, red with fury under the layer of mud that cakes his face and expensive suit. Oh man, it's Dr. Thaddeus, the superintendent. Who's the driver? He rages. I'll have you arrested. You lunatic, how dare you? His voice trails off when he realizes he's talking to a kid. It's an awkward moment. None of the adults have the guts to say anything because most of them are teachers, and this mudball is their boss. The only person who speaks up is Grams. What do you think you are? She storms at the stunned Dr. Thaddeus. You ought to be ashamed of yourself, a lowlife who hasn't got the sense to put on a clean suit. When do you get off yelling at my grandson? My grandson. Then she says it. My grandson, Parker. Parker. She called me Parker. A lot of crazy things happened this morning, like when our banner caught on fire and the eggplant got ruined, and I almost killed the superintendent, obviously. But for me, today will always be the greatest day ever because Grams remembered my name. Chapter 30, Aldo Broff. Just because you've got anger management problems doesn't mean there isn't plenty to be ticked off about. Second, the internal combustion engine finished second in the district science fair. It would have been better to finish 150th than to come so close to winning only to take an L. I don't care about the trophy. You can find that plastic junk in any dollar store. But we were a hair from saving Ribbit, and they gave first place to a bunch of dweebs whose teacher didn't even need saving. I barely remember their project, some windmill thingy. No one's ever going to forget ours. Definitely not the fire department, who had to spray down all those bushes and trees because of conflagration containment, whatever that means. Miss Fountain tries to make us feel better. You can't take this personally. So personally, she tells us on Monday morning, your project was just as good as the wind turbine. But clean power is very hot these days. Hot, I echo. We set the whole street on fire. What could be hotter than that? She's patient, I mean popular. People care about the environment. Your project was wonderful, but internal combustion engines are so last century. How do you think everybody got to the science fair? Barnstorm challenges. They drove internal combustion engines. I bet nobody came by wind turbine, Elaine adds in her usual rumble. Miss Fountain just sighs. I can't be mad at her. She wanted this every bit as much as we did. It was Ribbit who showed me that teachers aren't always the enemy, even when they make you do work or yell or take away your rabbit butts. If it wasn't for Ribbit, I never would have heard of where the red fern grows, which I'd be done with by now if we didn't drop everything to work on the science fair. I can barely picture my life before I knew about Billy, old Dan, and little Ann, who feel like real people to me, except old Dan and little Ann, who are dogs. Poor Mr. Kermit, says Kiana. I can't believe we let him down. I don't want any more of that kind of talk, Miss Fountain lectures sternly. You didn't let him down. Just the opposite. He's prouder of you than he's ever been of any class, and he loves his new car. Then how come he was afraid to drive it home from the science fair? Mateo asked. That was just because of the racing fuel, she explains. Once Jake drained all that out and put in regular gas, Mr. Kermit was fine. He has the cutest nickname for it. He calls it Coco Nerd. Isn't that adorable? Miss Fountain thinks a lot of things are adorable. Sorry for my dog in the background. That's not my style. Maybe Valimer in a lizardly kind of way. And old Dan and little Ann, although I never met them in real life. Anyway, Ribbit might be psyched about his car, but he isn't psyched enough to come to school today. Even worse, our sub turns out to be Dawn of the Dead again. To be honest, she's not as mean this time around. Some of that might be that we're so depressed about losing Ribbit that nobody has the energy to give her much of a hard time. We drop a few textbooks, but our hearts aren't into it enough. Oh, sorry. Sorry for my dog over there gagging, but he is okay. We drop a few textbooks, but our hearts aren't into it enough to get the timing right. Who can buzz out a fake power when the best teacher in the world is getting shafted? And yes, could have helped, but you failed. We deserve Dawn of the Dead. We deserve someone even meaner than her. I can't picture who that could be. Mateo probably knows. When she tells us to work, we don't argue with her. We don't groan and complain. We don't even goof off. I'm just as happy to get back to old Dan and little Ann. It might take my mind off Ribbit and how we blew it for him. Dawn watches us a few minutes. Then she sighs and says, "All right, let's hear it." We stare at her blankly. "Come on," she persists. "Something's eating you, all of you. Tell me what it is." It's like a dam breaks, and we all start jabbering at the same time. Our teacher's getting fired for no reason at all. It's not fair. That jerk Thaddeus hates Mr. Kermit. He's worse than the demonators. I should have run him over when I had the chance. It goes on and on. We never run out of complaints about how awful and unfair it is. It's the first time I've ever been in class where everybody else is just as mad as I am. And we can't all have anger management issues. Sometimes mad is exactly what you're supposed to be. The amazing part is Dawn of the Dead doesn't chew us out or shut us down. She listens, which can't be easy with all 7 of us yelling over each other. Then she has a long conversation with Miss Fountain, who comes to see what the racket is all about. The 2 of them are in the hall talking for what seems like forever. Finally, the substitute walks back into the room and faces us. "Well, it seems as if I misguided you, young people." She's wrong about that. Anything bad she thought about us last time gets double, because we had the opportunity to help Ribbit, and we came up empty. Chapter 31, Mr. Kermit. The Cocoa Nerd is back, in a manner of speaking. Not that anybody would recognize it. It bears very little resemblance to the 1992 Chrysler Concorde Fiona picked out all those years ago. It looks exactly what it is, a mean set of wheels designed by a bunch of 8th graders who think nothing is worth driving unless everybody's staring at it. Chrome glitter paint, LED lights, tailpipes the size of cruise missiles, and an engine you can barely see over. I'm afraid to honk the horn. I know their taste in music. Even without the racing fuel, the thing is a rocket. The first time I dared to tap the gas pedal, I nearly rear-ended a cement truck. Only Dale Earnhardt Jr. could drive this car. It should be outlawed by the government. I'm crazy about it. My kids built this for me. It's the second greatest gift they have ever given me. Number 1 being the sight of Superintendent Thaddeus driving headfirst to a muddy flower bed, coming up fragrant with fertilizer, a chrysanthemum behind his ear. They're the best class any soon-to-be ex-teacher could ever hope to have. They even put a frog logo on the door in honor of my last name, Kermit the Frog. Come to think of it, the frog theme has been in place since the beginning of the year. More proof that the so-called unteachables have better heads on their shoulders than anyone suspected. I just never connected at all that ribbiting before. I don't mind. It's kind of a tribute. One day a cop pulls me over just to get a good look at what I'm driving. The officer writes out a ticket giving me 1 week to cover up the engine. I call Jake, who promises to design a hood that complies with the law. He also agrees to raise the seat 4 inches so I'll be able to see the road in front of me. I don't want the kids working on it, I insist over the phone. They've done more than enough for me already. I loved being their sponsor, Jake replies. They're a fantastic group. A brief pause. Too bad not all your classes measured up to their level. He's 1,000% right about that. Who knew better than Jake, who single-handedly made in the 1992 class a nightmare and messed up my life in the process. On the other hand, 1992 was a long time ago. In 1992, the Cocoa Nerd was just a car. Today, it's a weapon of mass destruction. The transformation of Jake Terranova has been no less dramatic. He's a businessman, an entrepreneur, a grown up, a solid citizen who's done so much for the unteachables. Plus, a few days ago, I spotted his Porsche parked in front of the Greenwich Diamond Exchange and Jake himself inside examining velvet trays of ring. Fiona's daughter could definitely do worse. People change, I tell my former student. You're you're a good guy, Jake. Jake actually gets choked up on the other end of the line. I've never ruined anyone's life, but apparently it's almost as hard on the messier as it is on the messy. I just, I go back to school on Wednesday, not because I care one way or the other whether the place is still standing, but because I don't want the kids to think I blame them for not winning the science fair. In fact, the opposite is true. They exceeded my wildest expectations. They've been doing that on a daily basis ever since they dumped the Vazula's shipment in the river. Another thing about the new and improved Cocoa Nerd, it's unparkable. Those external tailpipes make it as wide as a ferry boat, but I finally get it jammed in between Emma's Prius and the pickup truck belonging to the Elias farm. The door opens and I have about 4 inches of clearance to squeeze myself through. Amazingly, I made it. I've been slimming down lately thanks to the mustard on the toast diet. Since I'm going to be out of a job soon, maybe it's time to reinvent myself as a weight loss guru. I'll be rich, or at least I'll be able to afford gas for the Cocoa Nerd's 585 horsepower engine. I've barely set foot inside the entrance foyer when Principal Vargas rushes up and grabs me by the arm. Zachary, I need to talk to you. Later, I promise her. I want to reassure my class. Now, and she literally drags me into her office and shuts the door. She's obviously been stalking out the front hall. It can only mean one thing. Thaddeus is using the events of the science fair to fire me effectively. The superintendent is so mad that he won't even let me finish out the semester. So, I say bitterly, is Thaddeus planning to axe me in person, or has he got you doing his dirty work for him? In answer, she presses a copy of the Greenwich Telegraph into my hands. I don't even glance down at it. How do you like it, Christina? On some level, I regret uploading my emotions on the principal, who has never been anything except supportive, but I'm just too upset to hold it inside. How does it feel to wield the hatchet for him? Read it, Zachary, she orders. Superintendent to super teacher, you're fired. The Greenwich Telegram, local news by Martin Landsman, staff reporter. It's the goal of every community to create a school system in which each pupil is inspired to excel. This can't be accomplished without great teachers, but an educator who can truly transform the lives of his and her students is the rarest of gems. Meet Mr. Zachary Kermit, teacher of the self-contained special 8th grade class at Greenwich Middle School. By any objective measure, Mr. Kermit has performed a miracle. His students' test scores are up 87% this semester. SCS 8 took second place at the competitive district science fair. Disciplinary problems have virtually disappeared. Most impressive of all, the atmosphere in his classroom, formerly one of the Greenwich's most difficult, has become nurturing, supportive, enthusiastic, and successful. And there's no mistaking the students' opinion of their teacher. They adore him. And what's Mr. Kermit's reward for this remarkable achievement? A letter of commendation, a bonus, a promotion? No, a pink slip. He's been terminated, effective the end of the semester. I read on. The reporter calls out Dr. Thaddeus by name and demands to know why the best teacher in the district is being fired. He accuses the superintendent of holding a personal grudge dating back to the cheating scandal in 1992, and he includes a quote from a member of that 1992 class. Prominent local business owner Jake Terranova guaranteed that what happened back then wasn't the teacher's fault. The article concludes, Dr. Thaddeus, this message is for you. It's time to put petty grievances aside and remember who our education system is supposed to serve, our children. I look up at my principal. Who wrote this? I squint at the byline. Who's Martin Landsman, and how did he find out about my class? Beatrice Landsman is the sub who covered your group on Monday. Martin is her son. I guess the kids gave her quite an earful. There's something special. I have to work hard to keep my voice steady. Every time I think I've seen the best they have to offer, they climb one rung higher. That's why I'm anxious to get to my room. We don't have many more days together. That's what I've been trying to tell you, she exclaims. Everyone in town has seen this article. The district offices are buried in phone calls and emails. You're not fired anymore. I'm stunned. Thaddeus changed his mind? He didn't have much choice. You're a hero, and that means you can finish out the year and take your early retirement in June. Congratulations, Zachary. I'm so pleased for you. A flood of relief and satisfaction washes over me, and yet, for some reason, I'm not as thrilled as I thought I'd be at such good news. Where's the happy, the joy, the trumpet at beating back that overblown, self-important tyrant of a superintendent? It comes to me in a moment of clarity. The problem isn't the reinstated part, it's the part about retiring in June. Why would I fight off Thaddeus' attempt to force me out in December only to exit voluntarily a few months later? The Unteachables have done a lot for me this semester, but their greatest gift is this. They showed me that I'm still a teacher. I have a lot to offer students, not just this class, but my many classes to come. I'm not retiring, I tell her. Sign me up for next year. She stares at me uncertainly. Zachary? I head for the door, and I want SCS 8. Nobody else. If anyone has questions, I'll be with my kids. I stride to room 117 with an energy and a sense of purpose I haven't known in decades. By the time I get there, my feet are barely touching the floor, so I'm a little shocked when I see how down the students are. Here I am on top of the world, and they're positively drooping. Barnstorm's left crutch is the only thing keeping him from falling out of his chair. Ryan's head is on his desk again, but he isn't sleeping. He's just too depressed to sit upright. Even Aldo is missing his usual belligerent expression, making him look almost agreeable, and there isn't a single ribbit, not one. I sit down on the edge of my desk. I have an announcement to make. Kiana stands up. Us first, Mr. Kermit. Her voice is thin and watery. We're really sorry we couldn't win the science fair for you. We came so close, but in the end it just wasn't enough. Maybe it's true what everybody says, that we're a bad class. I leap to my feet. Don't ever say that. You're the best class in this school, and I know because I've been shuffled around to most of them. You've got nothing to be sorry for. Besides, I add, realizing I should have said this part first, I'm not fired anymore. Head snapped to attention. Even Rams. Elaine jumps up, sending her chair skittering. You're messing with us, Barnstorm accuses. For real, Mr. K? Asked Parker, his eyes huge. For real, I confirm. I can't explain it exactly because I'm not sure I understand it myself, but it has a lot to do with... That's as far as I get. They swarm the desk, cheering and howling, almost knocking me over, battering me with high fives. Their behavior is loud, unruly, and borderline violent, completely unacceptable. I accept it. They've earned that much and more. Emma rushes over from next door to investigate the ruckus. Ribbit isn't fired anymore, Parker yells at her. And she joins the celebration, unruly as any of the kids. I can't help noticing that, sorry, my dog's tail is on my book. I can't help noticing that she's wearing an engagement ring, a big one. I'm not her father, but in a strange way, I feel like a proud parent. Enough, settle down, everybody. I glare my unteachables back to their seats. Just because we get some good news doesn't mean this isn't a school. Haven't you all got work to do? There's shuffling sound of books, papers, and iPads are pulled out of desks. Aldo and Elaine disappear behind their copies of Where the Red Fern Grows. That's wonderful, Mr. Kermit. Emma breathes as she heads back to her own class. We're going to have something inspiring to talk about during circle time. As I sit down, there's my dog's tail. See? I'll show you him in a minute. There's a shuffling sound as the books, papers, and iPads are pulled out of desks. Aldo and Elaine disappear behind, my dog keeps bumping me. Aldo and Elaine disappear behind their copies of Where the Red Fern Grows. That's wonderful, Mr. Kermit. Emma breathes as she heads back to her own class. We're going to have something inspiring to talk about. Circle time. Sorry for the repeat. As I sit down, I catch a flash of sunlight reflecting off the red and silver of the Cocoa Nerd out in the parking lot. We have a lot in common, the car and I. Just like me, it was a beat-up old wreck on the verge of falling apart at any moment. But we were refurbished, both of us, brought back to life by the seven unteachables. No! The cry from Aldo is pure agony. I turn to him in alarm. Aldo, what's wrong? His face is redder than his hair and streaked with tears. Oh, Dan and little Ann, he gasps, waving Where the Red Fern Grows in front of him. They're dead, both of them. Heavy, Elaine agrees, her expression solemn. Well, I began, choosing my words carefully. Some stories, Aldo cuts me off. I read one book all the way through, just one, and this is what I get for it. The cover should come with a sticker warning, do not read unless you hate dogs. The kid is totally inconsolable. By 8th grade, most readers have already experienced plenty of devastating sad endings, but in Aldo's case, this is the first novel he's ever finished. I turned to the Good Bunnies chart, pluck a puffy tail from the Ziploc baggie, and affix it to Aldo's name. Well done. You showed empathy in reacting to a piece of literature. Congratulations. Aldo seemed shocked at first, then amid a smattering of appetite, he walks to the front of the room, removes this one and only puffy tail, and offers it to Kiana. Fair is fair, he says bravely. I owe you a lot more than just this one. Please keep it, Kiana tells him. He shakes his head. It has to work like a market economy. She looks at me. Come on, Mr. Kermit. Do I have to take it? Even in a market economy, there's such a thing as giving someone you like a present if you want to. Aldo's eyes widen, and his hair seems to become just a touch redder, or maybe it's a reflection of the sudden flush in his cheeks. I issue my ruling. Absolutely, a lender is allowed to forgive a debt, and Aldo Broff, the toughest case in the entire Greenwich School District, throws his arms around Kiana and hugs her. My career has taken some strange detours, yet here I am, surrounded by the worst class I've ever had in every way but one, the fact that they're the best class I've ever had. Somehow it feels like I'm exactly where I was meant to be, doing exactly what I was meant to do, teaching the unteachables. Tune in next time for the last chapter.